The Hong Kong Real Estate Corporation is a small company with big ambitions. It's building apartments, factories and schools across Vietnam. And within 10 years, it plans to open its own bank. But in the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, you haven't really announced your arrival until you list on the stock exchange. And today, Hong Kong is listing 40 million shares on the Ho Chi Minh City Exchange. It's the most obvious symbol of Vietnam's command economy being opened up to market forces.
The exchange is the real thing. It has a market capitalization already between the north and the south, the two bourses, of well over $35 billion US, and that's in a fairly depressed valuation. Over 500 companies have listed. We expect over the next couple of years that will probably double to 1,000 companies.
And now almost anyone can become an instant capitalist.
You can be in a taxi and you can hear the taxi driver keenly listening into how the VN Index has performed. You start to see how the financial markets in Vietnam is slowly ingraining itself to the middle class here.
The stock exchange is just 10 years old, and perhaps ironically, it's been set up in the former headquarters of the old South Vietnamese government, overthrown by the communists in 1975. The actual trading floor has been mostly deserted for over a year since the introduction of online trading. And now it's in lobbies of security companies like this where most of the action takes place.
Vietnamese generally love to gamble, and with the introduction of something like the stock exchange, we've seen a lot of gambling practices take place. Irrational speculation in the form of rumors entering the market, and even price manipulation or price fixing.
It's very much typical of an early stage stock market where information flows in certain directions but doesn't necessarily flow to everybody at the same time.
But the Vietnamese government had something more in mind than a state-sponsored casino.
The primary purpose of opening the stock exchange is to help the companies to raise funds, to mobilize resources for their growth. And we also see that as a very good channel for, actually for the government to what we call the equitization of the state-owned enterprises.
But this equitization or privatisation process has had unexpected results.
The big state-owned companies now have many hundreds of subsidiaries of which they own a piece, but which are ostensibly private or non-state entities. So equitization now is actually expanding the role of the state rather than contracting it.
And the government's policy of backing and consolidating a group of massive state-owned enterprises has mostly been a failure.
What they did was they were sheltered from the international market. They were sheltered from competition. They were given cheap credit from the domestic banking system. They were given access to state land. They didn't use that to build competitive, outward-looking industries. And in fact, why would they? Because they were sheltered from competition. They used that capital and they used that land to make money. But they didn't make money by making things, they made money by speculating.
The result has been a classic boom and bust economy. Property values have spiralled upwards, and a conspicuous few have made a lot of money. Private companies listed on the exchange also have access to new funds.
It's kind of, everlasting fund for them to use, as long as they still can deliver the value to the shareholders. And also, so many people happen to be billionaires, millionaires over a short period of time with their entrepreneurship, with what they really put down to the companies. So it's very encouraging.
Lee Quy Trung is one of Vietnam's most successful entrepreneurs, but his chain of noodle bars was funded not from the stock exchange, but by family money and venture capital.
At first, my wife said, "You crazy, you don't want to be an owner of a pho noodle, because the image is the old guy with a big belly, sweat and cooking the noodles."
But his Pho 24 franchise has been highly successful, with 60 noodle shops in Vietnam and another 17 overseas, with plans for lots more.
For a big plan like what I have, I'm going to need a lot of money, a lot of money for not only Vietnam but also in overseas operations. So far I have a few options like venture capital and but stock exchange will be maybe a good option.
But perhaps the biggest problem facing Vietnam's economy is the currency itself.
Vietnam is essentially running a three-currency economy. One of my favorite stories is recently one of the domestic banks opened up an ATM machine in Hanoi that gives out gold bars. So now you can put your cash card into an ATM machine and get a little gold bar. Well, that says to me that now this monetization, if you like, of gold, the use of gold as currency in Vietnam has assumed, very damaging proportions.
Decades of war and uncertainty mean that around a half of Vietnam's savings are not in the banks, but literally under people's beds, usually in the form of gold or US dollars. And this informal economy, where people borrow from each other and not from a bank, has been critical in cushioning the effects of an open market.
The pockets of Vietnam are deeper than you might imagine from the official numbers. But at the same time, it also acts as a constraint on government policy, because whenever monetary policy gets out of whack, whenever growth is too strong, people lose confidence in the dollar and they shift across to the dollar and gold. So in a sense, the black economy is operating as an essential check.
I don't know if it's 5 years, I don't know if it's 10 years, but I think over the long period, those of us who live in Vietnam and work here, I think we generally tend to be very optimistic. We don't see Vietnam being a poor country for very long. They're risk-loving, they love investing, they love setting up new businesses.
It is, if you like, a combination, or a very Asian combination of private enterprise with public direction. That's not something political, that's just the way things are done here in Asia.